All right, what's up? It's me, the ultimate turbo virgin neckbeard power scaler on the internet. Uh, all right, let's get this out of the way in like the first minute of the record, right? I don't want anything to do with any other power scalers on the internet. I don't want to debate anybody. I don't want beef. I don't want nothing. Nothing. But yeah, like if you're willing to like ignore all that stuff, then like yeah, leave me hate-filled comments on the video. Like I'll read them, and if you can convince me, I'll change my mind. But like I'm not getting in voice chat, not going on Twitter. All right, we're gonna keep this to a video. But like if you're cool, I'd love to hang out and voice chat and talk. But like I'm not, no debating. That just leads to nothing but bad stuff. I think that's out of the way. So, I'm using Swagkage's template. Here at the bottom, Swagkage. Actually, let's go into presentation. Yeah, that looks a lot better. I'm using his template, but I won't be talking about 6 paths above. I'll just be focusing on part 1 scaling. However, if this video does well, and it's not like super toxic and whatever, I'll come back to it and I'll do more parts. I'm going to preface that I haven't read the manga. This is based entirely off of anime scaling with supplementary databook statements that I'm aware of, as well as manga panels I'm familiar with that don't contradict the anime. So for instance, I read up to the Orochimaru and Hiruzen fight in the manga for power scaling notes 2 years ago. But I actually lost my laptop at the time, so I didn't finish part 1. But I've rewatched the anime so many times because it's on Netflix that I just know it. I've also listened to, and I'm not even kidding you, like probably 100 hours of debates on YouTube. I've just kind of absorbed the knowledge of like certain statements and scans from that. Because I used to be really in the paint about being like aggressive and nerdy about this stuff. So hopefully that transfers to like an interesting tier list, but at the same time, I've softened up and I don't want any beef, man. Internet drama is weird. But yeah, so that's why I said if you know something I don't, comment and tell me. But there's a few things I do know about. Maybe if you sneak a peek up here, some of the points I'm going to go harder on. But yeah. This will be part 1 only, and I think the best way to get this across is this tier, right? These are all characters who show up in part 1, but actually quantifying where they go in part 1 is like very weird. It's like insanely weird to try and put these characters on the tier list. Right? So I just didn't bother with it. These are the important characters anyway, the Sound 5. Like Gaara, Orochimaru, the Chunin exams fights, Land of Waves, Zabuzahaku. This is what people care about. So, now that we've got that out of the way, let's get into this. That's right, I need to change this tier to Anbu so that it's simpler. And yeah. At the start of the series, Minato and Kurama are hyped up to be in a league that nobody else are. Like I said, this is part 1, so this is just lore. But if you'd rather put them down here in weird, you can. But they actually do have, like, insane lore about them. So. And because that lore is, like, higher than everyone rather than kind of, like, weirdly in the middle, like, some of these I'm actually going to put them on the list. There's one person on the list that is stronger. Oh, sorry, legendary. There's one person on the list that's stronger, but he's also weird. Spoilers, and I'm sure you know who it is. So, alright, Naruto at the start of the series is probably the weakest character on the tier list. Probably the weakest character in like all the options he has here too. Just sucks. Has like no taijutsu, has no speed feats, has no ninjutsu, has no genjutsu. He can't really tap into Kurama yet. He has to train in order to reach the Mizuki fight level. Iruka did better than him against Mizuki, and Mizuki beat Iruka. However, later on in part 1, if you use the anime filler, which I will use supplementary, and we'll get to that, but it's not very important, Mizuki gets like an Orochimaru amp and still can't beat Iruka, so maybe Iruka's like here, but it doesn't matter. Either way. And then obviously, Naruto doesn't even take any damage from Mizuki after he summons the clones. This Naruto has to be at a higher tier. Ebisu only fought like normal Naruto that could do a few clones, not 1,000, and he was pretty confident he could beat Mizuki. Sasuke at the Land of Waves is like the top of the class. So this is the beginning of the Land of Waves. This is like a beginning of Academy Sasuke. There is a highball for where he should go, but at the same time, that highball is weird. So we're just gonna put him like probably here. Mozu and Gozu, or Mezu and Gozu. They would have beaten Sasuke. They like got back up and were about to like murder Tazuna. But he was able to finesse them. So, I mean, like, they shouldn't be too far off from each other. Mezu and Gozu should also just be lower than Iruka and Mizuki going off of lore. We know that the ninja ranks don't matter very much because Naruto was a Genin during the war arc when he had, like, Sage of Six Past powers, but it is known that, like, ranks, like a Jonin from any other village is, like, usually what a Chunin is from, like, the Leaf. So, like, non-leaf tuning, leaf tuning, special leaf tuning kind of makes it, or leaf special tuning. So that kind of helps organize these. This is Naruto after training for the bridge fight. It was stated he could have used his advantage of off guard to like help Sasuke with Haku, but Sasuke or Naruto performed worse than Haku during that fight. So pretty self-explanatory. And then we know that Naruto came out and did better than Sasuke in that fight. The bigger problem for this Naruto is that he has 2 highballs. He's got 3 ways to scale. You can either say he did better than Sasuke against Haku. You can say that he's stronger than Zabuza by Zabuza's statement. Or you can say that Naruto is stronger than Rusty Kakashi. So you've got 3 different levels to scale him to, and we'll come back to him each time. We'll leave him here for now, just so the video's smoother. He's not going in Jonin tier for being a Jonin, but he's going in Jonin tier for pretty confidently beating up someone who's in Chunin tier. And unfortunately, Zabuza is pretty not that great using just part 1. So this is the first really like contentious placement. But all of Zabuza's really good like lore and scaling comes from the war arc. This is because Kakashi gets like much stronger after he fights Zabuza, and Kakashi was already drastically above Zabuza. So the idea that like Zabuza is really all that in part 1 using just part 1 is like not very likely. In the war arc, he's able to use his blood mist jutsu, where he summons like that purple aura, and he's able to like fight Kakashi. But we don't see him do that until he's like half dead, when Tazuna and all his, or Gato and all his men are like stabbing him. So we just don't see him do that much, and we don't know if that's something that he can consciously do. Because we know that Kabuto had to summon that ability for him, so it's something he might not be able to control. But in part 1, he just scales right here. Kind of unfortunate. The reason he scales here is because this Sasuke was able to beat 10% clones of Zabuza. And you can argue that having a full 10 times amp is enough to put you in a higher tier, but it's not that much higher. Haku, on the other hand, is stated pretty confidently to be above this Kakashi and this Zabuza. And it stated that the only reason he lost to this Naruto and that Sasuke was doing anything is because he let them. He was actually able to blitz Kakashi going all out and using his Raikiri across the battlefield. Haku should more than likely just be in a tier above Rusty Kakashi. Just because he was able to blitz him like that. I just like to consider, for the sake of doing a tier list like this, I try to mostly consider inverse and not try to quantify things for scaling. But, like, it should be noted, humans can, like, somewhat keep track of bullets that move, like, in a firing range without being, like, perception blitzed by a bullet, right? So, like, the idea that Haku was able to literally blitz this Kakashi means that he's probably way, way, way faster than him. But when you get into stuff like that, it's kind of weird. You kind of need to do it for characters like the Sound 4, but for the most part, it's better to stick to that. There is the data book statement that Haku's mirrors move at the speed of light, which kind of supports the idea that he's, like, much, much faster than this Kakashi. But either way, he's at least up here. So this is the Naruto that fought against Orochimaru and his snakes. This is another case where using cross-verse quantification helps suggest how much stronger he is than all these. But the feats he accomplishes are just enough that it should be a tier above what any of these guys can do. He should just be strong enough to just pummel 1,000 of these Narutos, right? Honestly. So we're just going to put him at the bottom of this tier, kind of, and just leave it at that. This Sasuke is very weird, though. So this Sasuke is either, like, right here, because he's just, like, marginally stronger, or you believe that he impressed Orochimaru more than Naruto, and that he goes right here. So, because I don't just want these two Sasukes to be next to each other, this is the highball. But realistically, I don't think that. So, I'm still going to be nice to Sasuke and put him up there, but the argument comes down to whether or not Orochimaru is scared of Naruto's use of Kurama, or if Orochimaru is scared of Kurama. I think he's more scared of Kurama, because it's actually a narrative point later on that Orochimaru goes out of his way to try to murder Naruto when he sees that Naruto learned how to use the Rasengan, because he's like, oh, that means Naruto is a threat. But, like, here he's just sealing Kurama. So, like, I don't know. He is, like, afraid of Kurama. I guess we'll put it like this and just be nice to Sasuke. It is possible for Sasuke to jump all the way up here, though, because Sasuke was using the Will of Fire in this fight. I know that people really hate resolve amps, because, like, certain people kind of just use it to explain anything that they want for their scaling video at the time, but, like, Sasuke literally is protecting Sasuke and Naruto, or Sakura and Naruto, and it's specifically when you protect someone that's close to you that you gain the Will of Fire. This is a very big point, you know, in a certain fight, you know? And this is kind of like Sasuke, like, developing it a little bit, and saying that he'll find Itachi on his own, using his own path, and all that good stuff. So we'll put him up here. But before the two of them, Lee comes in and just, like, knocks the dog piss out of this Sasuke. Sasuke can still kind of keep up with Lee's movements with his Sharingan, but he can't actually physically react to him. And I'm actually just going to say Lee is probably the top of this tier. Also, we're going to move Naruto up with a Kakashi for now, just to keep this more kind of better looking. I'm actually going to say that Lee should probably just be, like, up here. I think that's a lot better. Maybe moving these two down. I don't know. This part's a little weird. But essentially, Lee just absolutely annihilates Sasuke. And then he was about to use the Hidden Lotus, but then he was stopped by the turtle. So, if you don't think this one is much stronger than this one, but he still impressed Orochimaru more than this one, Rock Lee is stronger than this Naruto for sure. If you think these two are like super weird amped that like doesn't scale to any other version of them, they could be higher. But at the same time, Lee just kind of comes in. There's also a statement later on that kind of proves that this Sasuke doesn't compare to this Sasuke. So we'll get to it. But for now, this is the order. Dosu is bad. That's how the three of them should scale. Ken just doesn't really have any feats in the fight other than tanking like a normal kick from Lee. But that's not really that great. Maybe the fact that they all three tanked it means that she shouldn't be far behind Dosu. I can give her that. But these three scaling comes in this way because Dosu gets knocked around by Lee, and then he gets Hidden Lotused. So Lee activates the first gate, Hidden Lotuses Dosu, and he's about to finish him off, and then Zaku comes in and saves him. So this Lee versus this Dosu or this Ken, he just wins. He just primary Lotuses and then wins. However, this Zaku was able to react to this Lee using the Hidden Lotus mid-fight. So like mid-Lotus, when he brings it to the ground, Zaku was able to react and fire off his ability. So Zaku was actually faster than this Lee. But Dosu just got like knocked out. Dosu would have died. This is kind of bad. The main reason Dosu is above this Sasuke is because Lee was just kind of trying to flex on this Sasuke by using the Lotus. But he says, I need to use the Lotus on these guys if they beat Sasuke. So he's kind of saying that like by beating this Sasuke and Naruto that he had already fought, that they're a formidable foe that he needed to use the Lotus on. So he considers them greater. Like using the Lotus to flex, needing the Lotus. But he would have annihilated him with the Lotus, so it's not that great. You know what I mean? Obviously, Sasuke comes in and bullies this Zaku. It's not even close. The fact that he's able to blitz someone who can react to someone that can blitz Sasuke is also the indicator that this Sasuke is kind of more at Zabuza's level. But Sasuke doesn't have like good stamina in this form. We don't know how his Sharingan interacts with like... Well, actually, we know that Zabuza's mist ability actually can work on someone of Kakashi's level Sharingan, so no. Zabuza still just hit and miss and probably like cuts the Sasuke's head off. Yoroi probably scales right here. He loses to like a fatigued, no chakra Sasuke that like can barely use his Sharingan and like hardly any ninjutsu. Yoroi stands no chance against healthy Sasuke. So, that's that. However, this Sasuke that's like kind of fatigued from this is like amazed at the progress like Naruto is doing. So he's probably like... Even though he's nerfed from Orochimaru, he's still probably stronger than he was here. So I'd probably put it like that. And then he beat Kiba. He only beat Kiba by accidentally farting on him, but at the same time Kiba was amped, and Naruto was nerfed and fatigued, so just normally Naruto should win. Next up is Sakura and Ino. They're very weird characters, because Sakura has like a really weird highball. During the filler arc, mission to protect Idate in the Land of Tea, on a ship, like a sailing ship, there are like those giant lumbers that stand up that you like use to hold the lookout post that all the sails tie to. And Sakura just lifts one of those up and swings it at a bunch of mist clones. So her strength in part 1 is actually kind of nutty if you use the filler. She's also fast enough to create substitutions that fool the Sound Ninja. And substitutions worked by using raw speed. So like in speed she should be up here, and in power she should be up here. Which is really weird, but then in fights she just keeps losing to everybody and can't do much. Just because of that highball, I'm gonna put her like here, but also that pillar feat comes after the fight with Ino, so she would probably win afterwards. But that's really weird. I really encourage you to go find that feat. I didn't bother looking it up, but that filler episode is crazy. It's like I think around episode 100, and it's really funny. It's insane. Mizumi. Bro, Mizumi's down bad. Mizumi has no feats. He's like actually got an ability though, so I'll put him at like the top of this tier. But Mizumi just has nothing going on. He loses to Kankuro, and in the fight he only rushes him because Kankuro led him. Which is kind of like the epitome of like super down bad, just like your only feat in one fight is your opponent letting you do something. So yeah, terrible. Tenten similarly has 0 feats, but there's one kind of implication you can use that Neji, Lee, and Tenten all consider themselves when like Neji is suppressed, Lee has his weights on, and Tenten is like whatever, that they're all kind of relative. So like there's an argument that she's like right here, but he can use the Lotus, so he'd be better. And this doesn't really contradict any scaling either. Tamari blocks a kick from base Lee and is like, that's nothing impressive, and she like bodies Tenten. So like Tenten going up this high doesn't cause any problems on the list. It just looks really weird because she sucks and like doesn't do anything. But you could also make the argument she's like kind of able to follow the fight between like Naruto and Neji and Sasuke and Gaara. So like maybe she is just kind of this level. But, like, who knows? Maybe this is plot convenience. Still, it doesn't contradict anything for her to be this high. And I would put her really relative to, like, this Lee, so. Otherwise, you know, obviously she's just, like, down here. It has, like, nothing on it. But the argument for her being this high is also that she's, like, an advanced Genin that's, like, been a Genin for a year. Which is, like, super long for most Genin. And that like Neji and Lee don't consider her a burden, and like Neji even somewhat trains with Tenten, you know. So like she's probably not like down terrible. You know what? I actually think this. Yeah, I know that looks so cringe. I can't. I really, you know what? This one probably still loses to everyone because she has like no power, and her ability is hard to use, but I think in speed she gets here and then she has some strength. But part 1 characters are kind of weird sometimes. That's why I don't know. Hinata in part 1, we're gonna come back to her. Weightless Lee. I mean pretty definitively like up here. Whether he could beat Zabuza or not is kind of weird, but for the sake of it, we'll come back to Zabuza. This Lee and this Sasuke are really hard to determine who's better. In a fight, though, this Lee always wins because he has the Lotus and he has better stamina. When Sakura is getting protected, she's able to tell that Lee uses the Lotus, right? She watches that happen. And she also watches Sasuke do this. So she makes that he'd never seen Sasuke like that before, which is obviously about his character. He's like evil. But it also means he should scale above this one. However, later on when Lee takes off his weights, she acts more surprised about the weights coming off and his increase in speed there than this Lee using the Lotus, which she saw technically twice. So this Lee is definitely better than the Lotus from this. And more than likely, probably even better than this. We don't know how he fights Zabuza, though. He has, like, no resistance to Genjutsu. So the hidden mist, he could still probably catch him off guard, but we're getting to the point to where this Lee might just be fast enough to, like, beat up this Zabuza. But hidden mist is really strong, so we'll leave him there. Zabuza cannot do anything to Gaara, though. Because you would have to argue that Zabuza's fast enough to get past the sand, and we just don't know. But abilities-wise, it doesn't matter because of his defense. And yeah. If it was kind of weird between these three, this guy just blows these three out of the water. We don't know how much faster Force Gate Lee is than Weightless Lee, but he's somewhat faster. Like, it's implied that the difference between Weightless Lee and Force Gate Lee is that Kakashi needs his Sharingan to follow him. And this is, like, rusty Kakashi that hasn't trained yet. So, like, the idea that he's someone that he needs his Sharingan to track means that he's probably also definitely above Zabuza at this point. At the very least, encroaching on this level. And that's actually a good point for Zabuza beating this Lee and this Sasuke, is that he didn't need his Sharingan for them, but he did for this one. Still, it's hard to prove in speed that he could outlast or, like, blitz Zabuza. And if he runs out of steam in this form, he's just, like, dead. Like, maybe this? And then Choji gets beat up really bad by Dosu. Genjutsu. Yeah, we'll leave him like right there. It's probably fine. Yeah, because like Naruto's a direct fighter, and then Kiba's a direct fighter too. Ino doesn't really. He'd probably lose to Ino actually, and maybe Sasuke, but he beats more of that cast than these people do. Alright, let's rip this band-aid off. That's probably how this looks. This is where it gets really annoying, contentious. This shit's making me cringe. The comments are gonna hate this. Okay, let's start off with Weightless Lee, right? Weightless Lee got beat up by Neji pretty consistently. Hinata is able to scrap with Neji and actually land like a few blows on Neji, kind of. They don't matter, but I think she's able to tag him, and she's able to block some of his attacks. Now, he's not going all out, he's not fully bloodlusted, but he is trying, and he's very angry the entire fight because he's trying to. It's the narrative, right? The narrative is that Neji resents the main branch for being in a higher situation in life automatically, even though he's stronger than the heir to the main branch, which is Hinata. So he's really going at it. He's trying to prove that he's stronger, and Hinata is still able to keep up a little bit. When you take into account how easily Neji beats up this Lee, and then the fact that Hinata is like somewhat keeping up with like a pissed off serious Neji, this Hinata probably manages to take out his chakra points too. You might be able to argue that Weightless Lee can just use the primary Lotus to open his gates back up, but at the same time, it's very weird. We don't know how much faster you get from the primary Lotus, but just she kind of hard counters this Lee, essentially. The reason this Naruto is above this Hinata is because this Hinata did better against like Neji before the month of training, and this Naruto does worse against a more serious Neji. But Naruto is the first character in the series we see that is able to force Neji to use the rotation. So that means that if he can put Neji in that situation, he can put Hinata in the same situation. If not worse, because Hinata just directly scales worse. Fourth Gate Lee still is like really strong, and it's considered that this was what was going to be able to beat Neji. However, Neji uses the rotation during the finals, and it's implied to be something he learned recently, and we don't know that Lee knows about the rotation. Right? We gotta take Zabuza off for now. He's not going up there, but just to make this easier. There's a statement later on that Naruto is the strongest person that he ever fought before he fought Kidomaru. Now, Neji did not fight 4th Gate or 5th Gate Lee, but he saw them, and he's fought Lee. He also fought Red Gate Naruto, or Red Chakra Naruto. So, if you take that he knows what this Lee can do, and he knows what this Naruto can do, he still thinks that Naruto is stronger. These don't apply to Gaara, because Gaara isn't someone that Neji ever fought. And the reason I have this Neji above base Gaara is because he can shut down his chakra points. Even through, like, the Sand Shield, right? We don't know that the Sand Shield works the same as Kidomaru's in blocking chakra. We just know that the sand is a physical shield. So, even if it's made out of chakra, he can bypass it by using the Gentle Fist. The difference is that the sand is composed differently than Kidomaru's spiderweb skin, right? That's why I would put it like this. And they're all relative in speed from here up to here. These two are like somewhat faster, but Neji can still react and use the rotation. And these two, and he's just bulky enough to just take hits from these two. We literally saw that he beat this 4th Gate Lee because he outlasted him. So, unfortunate. Neji also outlasted Red Chakra Naruto, and he only lost because of the damage to the arena. So, no, you know what? Actually, yeah, you're right. Actually, yeah. That's right. Naruto created the hole. I'm thinking of Shikamaru and Temari. No, Naruto created the hole. So that means Naruto outplanned and outlasted this Neji. Still, these three are weird. He probably loses to Hinata, just because Hinata scales to this Lee, but the Byakugan would bypass this more than likely. The Hidden Mist. I don't know where Gaara goes, but we'll get back to it in a second. Temari scales pretty directly and confidently above this Lee. He reacted to the Lotus, she reacted to a normal kick. Zaku seems better for now. Shikamaru lost. He literally says, I wouldn't have the chakra to hold you. And he was only able to capture her thanks to the damage to the arena done to Naruto. So, pretty confidently he loses in both cases. The reason Shikamaru is in Chunin, this is also kind of a distinguisher if you care about the actual ninja titles, but Shikamaru is only here for scaling to someone who scales above this Lee. And he's the weakest character in the series that we have as a Chunin, right? So that's kind of like an indicator of where Chunin tier starts for Naruto. That like isn't completely featless if you care about that kind of thing. Sasuke in this part is really hard to rank. I'm not putting him here for sure yet. The minimum that he beats is he jumps right here. Naruto, Hinata don't have anything to do to his Chidori. The problem is whether or not Rock Lee in the 4th Gate just has such raw speed that Sasuke can't do anything. We also know that Sasuke lost to Gaara because Gaara could have ripped his arm off if he wasn't having like a panic attack. So Neji, the rotation might just be strong enough to hold Neji, to hold the Chidori, and if the rotation's strong enough to block the Chidori, Naruto's raw chakra can do that too. You can also argue that, like, Naruto, even after fighting Neji, was still scared of Gaara, and Sasuke comes in and does really good against Gaara, so, like, you could honestly argue this Sasuke, like, jumps all the way up here. I still really don't know if he can beat 5th Gate Lee. Unless you argue the Gaara he fought was, like, partially transformed because of the ball. I don't know, it's really weird. There is that really edgy argument that Sasuke punches harder than 5th Gate Lee, but that argument makes me cringe. It's not bad, but it's just so absurd, you know? You know what? This Gaara did need to, like, start transforming into Shikaku, and that's how he blocked it. So that's more like this Gaara is above this Sasuke than this Gaara. And then we just don't know if the Chidori is strong enough to block the rotation. And this Naruto beat this Gaara. Neji, alright. We'll do it like that. But like I'm not aggressive about this part at all. The tuning exams is really hard to do. That's why there's so many videos on it. It's really fun. Shino beat Zaku. He was able to use his bugs to, like, nullify the sound damage to him, so he was able to tank it. He was able to react to Zaku too, and he was able to outplan him, outsmart him. So there's no world where Zaku doesn't lose. I mean, Zaku was weakened, but even then we saw that he caught Shino off guard by using his arm again, and it didn't matter, so Shino just wins. Plus, after this, Shino gets stronger too. Kankuro beat him. I know people are going to hate that. People are going to be pissed about that, but Shino literally had prep time. He put a bug on him in the arena before they started fighting. And then not only that, but Shino and him tie, quote unquote, right? Because, like, Kankuro has his chakra eaten, but Shino gets poisoned. Kankuro gets up on his own and goes to help Temari and Gaara. Shino, like, literally was laying there dying and would have died if his father didn't come and use his own bugs to help Shino out. So, Shino lost. Like, blatantly. But they are, like, hyper relative because they did fight. I'm just saying that fight is definitely a dub for Kankuro, right? But they do scale, like, right. Like, Zaku, Shino, Kankuro, in that order. So if this is, like, transformed Gaara, like, he's able to use the ball, and he has, like, the tail and the arm, he's up here, if not up here. And this Sasuke couldn't do shit to him. He was able to, like, rip his arm in half, and that was it. You can argue that because the Shikaku has come out, that that's stronger than the Dome by default. But, I don't know. Another argument, by the way, for Neji blocking Sasuke's Chidori that I forgot to mention because it's not very good. Tenshin makes a statement that Neji's defense is even greater than Gaara's. Which means that that's another point for this Neji's rotation blocking 5th Gate Lee that's actually kind of good, but not so much for Sasuke and Gaara because that happens after the fight, but if his defense is greater than Gaara's, that means that his rotation blocks the punches that the sand took. And it means that it more than likely blocks the Chidori. Because the Chidori had an elemental advantage and it still barely got through. So that would mean the rotation would be stronger. But Tenten's an unreliable source. If you argue for Tenten's statement, you have to go more for the fact that Kishimoto is speaking through Tenten. But people really hate that kind of thinking. So this should be this tier. Because the Chidori is already, like, kind of on this power level, right? And then amped by the curse mark, it's just way... It's probably the top. But it lost to Gaara. So this is Naruto in the Gaara fight. if this is meant to be Naruto with Gamabunta, he goes a little higher. But for now, we're just gonna say this is like Will of Fire Naruto. You know, where he like summons the blue chakra, and he's like talking about the Will of Fire, and he's like, "I won't let you hurt Sakura," and he pummels this Gaara. We're gonna put him like here. Gaara lets out Shikaku, and we see that Gamabunta is able to beat Gaara while using Shikaku's form. However, when Gaara summons Playing Possum Jutsu, Shikaku immediately starts beating up Gamabunta. And then Gamabunta says, if we don't finish this up soon, I'm going to die. If I take a few more of those real bullets, I'm going to die. So, Gaara's Shikaku is like... It's probably more like this, if we're being honest. Gamabunta is kind of weird. No, Gamabunta should still be up here somewhere. But Shikaku like dominates Gamabunta. So, we'll consider this like Will of Fire. And this is like one tail, one arm. Like Dirt Clay Gaara, not Shikaku Gaara. These two go way higher. Orochimaru obviously jumps up. Shikaku and Gamabunta are just going to kind of be in Kage tier because of how big they are. That it's hard to argue someone could really fight them. But there's actually kind of an argument that everyone in Jonin and Anbu tier could probably fight Gamabunta. It's just kind of weird. It's one of those arguments that isn't very easy to accept if you're not like kind of more nerdy about it, but it makes some sense. But for now, we'll just leave it like this. Hashirama and Tobirama have like no statements or scaling because both Orochimaru and Hiruzen are suppressed almost that entire fight. And the few times that Hiruzen isn't, he immediately dominates two of them. The only statement we have is that they're Kage level by Anbu watching. So like on an inverse scale, they scale like really high above Anbu level. But we don't care about that for the tiers, right? The tiers aren't literal to the levels, right? I'm putting Hiruzen above Orochimaru even though he lost. This is because the fight goes like this, right? How about I write it in here? Suppressed Hiruzen is weaker than suppressed Orochimaru. However, suppressed Orochimaru is weaker than fatigued, not suppressed Hiruzen. So, saying not suppressed Hiruzen or Orochimaru is just kind of like, where is he? You know? Is he like way stronger? Is he like not that much stronger? You know, it's kind of hard to say. All we know is that this guy is holding back a little bit. He never stops holding back at any point. This Hiruzen is holding back, gets fatigued, then stops holding back, and immediately presses this Orochimaru really difficultly hard. So if these two go at it, all we can scale is suppressed Orochimaru at this point. And if this Hiruzen isn't fatigued, he's going to annihilate this Orochimaru. That's what we have to go off of. So that's this chain. But like with Deep Forest Emergence and like Monkey King Enma, you can actually argue they're fighting like kaiju beings. So Shikaku and Gamabunta probably don't beat them. Maybe they beat Tobirama at this point. Because Tobirama doesn't have like large scale jutsu at this point. But I'm not going to be mean to Tobirama. Tobirama slander is pretty bad. Yeah, what do you know? Stated to be the best of all the Hokage. So, I mean, literally, that's that. Be mad if you want, but that's just his lore, so. Also, just for clarity, Nobody gets beyond this point. We're not scaling any higher than this. This is like the ceiling for part 1 characters. Kakashi is going to jump up here along with Asuma and Kurenai and Might Guy. Probably in that order, if we're being real. The reason is Asuma gets punked by Kisame pretty badly. Kisame then gets a dynamic intrigue by Might Guy. Might Guy is stated to always be a rival to Kakashi, and we know that Might Guy trains every single day. So Might Guy being relative to any weaker Kakashi doesn't matter. Might Guy got stronger too. We see during the arena fight, after Kakashi started training again, that Kakashi and Guy were doing equally as good against the Sound Ninja. So, there you go. Haku is stated to move at light speeds in her mirrors. Sorry, his mirrors. Looks like a girl. Sorry. But he... That's like a databook statement, I believe, during part 1. So I don't think that contradicts anything. But another thing, this is one of those areas where using outerverse type scaling can kind of help inverse, is he blitzes this character really badly and just kind of ends up vaguely higher. But we know that this Kakashi also has a light speed feat in the form of fighting Itachi. So Itachi uses a pretty casual... he's not below this bunch yet. We'll get to him. He uses a casual light attack and Kakashi is just barely able to react to it, so we know that they're in the same ballpark. However, we know that Haku travels between the mirrors at the speed of light, but we don't know if she actually fights. We don't know if Haku actually fights at that speed. It makes a lot of sense that you need to be able to react to your combat, to like your travel speed to fight with combat. But that's more rational, that's not necessarily proven, right? But yeah, altogether, that means it's more like this. It probably looks more like this, if we're being honest. And it might actually just be like this. This is because we know that Kisame can absorb chakra, but we don't know... We know that once Kisame... No, Kisame doesn't actually need Samehada to absorb chakra. This means that you can argue, like just logically, that if Kurenai tries to hit Kisame with a genjutsu, Kisame would just absorb her chakra that entered his body and not be affected. That's kind of a weird way to argue it, but I kind of believe that. Kisame is also just kind of about it with Samehada. The only problem is Kisame doesn't necessarily scale to Itachi. Itachi is like, even if you help me, we're probably not going to kill Jiraiya. So, you know. Obviously, Guy comes in and kicks Kisame, and Guy is kind of immune to Samehada because he just fights with his own power. He doesn't use chakra. And Haku is more so scaling to Kakashi and Guy's speed, and like kind of down from Itachi, whereas Kisame scales up from Kurenai, or scales up from Asuma. This Asuma is stated to be like relative to this Kakashi in hand-to-hand, so this tier is more relative, but that's hand-to-hand. That hand-to-hand isn't helping against Genjutsu, Samehada, which we saw, Ice Mirrors, better overall Taijutsu, or the Lightning Blade. Asuma's just kind of the bottom of this tier. This is only part 1. Asuma has way more high balls than Shippuden because of Hidan and Kakuzu. So let's see. I think that argues the entire tier. It's also worth noting Itachi is the moment Might Guy shows up, Itachi is like, alright, we should get out of here. So, you can argue that if you want. I don't really buy that, but like, it is kind of funny. It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny. The worst argument ever is that Kakashi is stated to be the best in part 1, even stronger than Hiruzen. And then Might Guy outdoes him I go against Itachi. So, oh, I hate this. But that's like a meme argument you can make. Itachi, realistically, is probably there. And let's just get these two out of the way because we really need to before I talk about this. So this is more than likely the Kage tier. In part 1, the Sannin are stated to be equal. However, Jiraiya believes he can kill Tsunade if Tsunade tries to join Orochimaru. So we have Jiraiya over Tsunade when they're not nerfed. From there, Orochimaru goes on to fight Hiruzen. So that's just directly better than what we see from Jiraiya or Tsunade. So Hiruzen is above Orochimaru more than Itachi because we saw him beat him, right? We saw him do well against him, whereas Orochimaru is still scared and doesn't think he can steal Itachi's eyes. We later find out that taking someone's body is actually more difficult than beating them in a match. So maybe that's what he meant, but that's kind of outside of part 1. You can also make the argument that in part 1 it's actually like this, and I know that sounds weird. But Orochimaru makes the statement that he can't go after Itachi's body when Orochimaru's like this. So you actually can argue that all three of the Sannin and Hiruzen are stronger than Itachi in part 1. I don't believe that, but you can make that argument. Realistically, his hacks just put him up here. The only reason I think Hiruzen is above him is because they both scale to this like kind of above Orochimaru level. And Hiruzen has Bringer of Darkness, which counters Sharingan Genjutsu. So if Hiruzen didn't have like all of Konoha's kit, it would be like this. But that's the only reason. And they also both have bad stamina because he like bodies Kakashi with like one Tsukuyomi, and he's like, all right, I'm a little tired. He uses one Amaterasu against Jiraiya's Toad, and he's like, all right, went a little too crazy, went a little too overboard there. So stamina's bad for both of them. They both scale vaguely above Orochimaru. These two, honestly, man, are like the debate of the century, and I actually love hearing debates about these two. When two people that are like similar in skill just go back and forth on it, it's really fun to watch. I'm personally going Hiruzen, but I get it if you go Itachi, I won't blame you. Knowing what we know in part 2, this could change if you think this Itachi is like stronger than Obito. Obviously, he jumps like probably up here, like. But in just part 1, he's like above Orochimaru and the Sannin. But by his own statement in part 1, he doesn't think that he can take Jiraiya. It's very weird. There's also worth noting that Orochimaru, while like way more nerfed than Jiraiya or Tsunade, is like still kind of able to body the two of them. So the Sannin being equal statement just might not be true compared to other feats we have. For now, I'm going to leave the tier like this, though, because I think this makes the most sense. These two are still able to kind of fight this guy and alongside this guy. And Tsunade is able to fight... Let's just get them up there. It'll make it easier. Like Manda, who's stronger than Gamabunta, and Katsuyu, who's weaker than all three of them. And like she's able to kind of beat up Manda with like Gamabunta's help. Same with Katsuyu. He's like able to have like a fight with Manda though, whereas Shikaku is like, I will die if Shikaku keeps it up. So that's the order for the kaiju, and then these two kind of scale up, like down from here too. Just off what we saw though, it still might be possible that these two just can't really beat these guys because they're just too big. But we know Tsunade can, and then people can beat Tsunade, so maybe it's more like this. But these guys scale down more from Tsunade, where they scale more from down from Hiruzen. So I'm still more okay with doing it like this. Yeah, we'll leave it like that. Plus, these two are like unkillable. So I don't know what these people do to him. I mean, I guess I don't know what these people do to him either. Actually, that's a good point. If you're scaling these as individual characters and not just part of Orochimaru's kit, I think Jiraiya Plus are only going to be able to deal with them because of the kit they have. But Tsunade doesn't really have anything like that, so Edo Tensei is kind of overpowered. Yeah. Tsunade goes to summon Katsuyu, and Kabuto immediately freaks out and jumps over and summons Manda. Orochimaru and Kabuto cannot fight Katsuyu. Kabuto is stated by Jiraiya is no stronger than he's strong as Kakashi, right? Infamous statement. He's on par with Kakashi, right? However, Kabuto also goes on to fight a suppressed Tsunade, so I don't think Kabuto's in the next tier, but he is pretty high. Kabuto versus Kakashi. So the Rasengan does more destructive damage than a Chidori does, right? Naruto slamming Kabuto in the stomach with a Rasengan was like destroying his internal organs and like, you know, like rupturing them, whereas the Chidori would have just pierced. In terms of healing that off, it's actually easier to like heal something like that pierces than like ruptures and like obliterates, right? So even though he would get a hole clean through him, it'd actually probably be easier to heal. And then we saw from there that he's on par with him, so that means that he would be able to. So plus, once his hand is inside of Kabuto, Kabuto would be able to use his techniques to like mess with Kakashi's body. We know that if he gets one good hit on a vital organ, he can shut it down. He can also do things like destroy the tendons. All of that. So we do know that Kabuto did kind of run from a Kakashi that was kind of weaker earlier, but Kabuto also could have gotten stronger. Kabuto got stronger in part 2 again. Kabuto doesn't just stagnate. I think Orochimaru still goes this high just because of his durability, but yeah, just because of his durability. He was eating punches from Tsunade. He wasn't confident about taking on Katsuyu, probably because of her acid, but he could still kind of take blows from like a weakened, fatigued, 100 healing Tsunade and just eat them. He's probably taking whatever these people can do. But at the same time, he was mad scared of Katsuyu, so I don't feel comfortable putting him up here. Oh, that's right, Rasengan. I mean, obviously, right? He beat him. No. This Naruto is really hard to scale. We know for sure he beat Sasuke, right? We know that for sure. They have their fight on the rooftop, and Sasuke literally got so mad at how much stronger the Rasengan is than his Chidori that he ran off to Orochimaru. You can argue that that means the Rasengan is just in a higher tier of power altogether than the rotation, red chakra, Chidori, sand, or gates, which I don't have a problem with. Probably like that, if we're being real. However, this Naruto isn't much doesn't have a speed boost like this Sasuke or this Gaara does, so... Or he doesn't have a Sharingan to keep up with Gaara, so he'd probably still lose to this Gaara. We know that these bunch, the Sound 4, are able to keep up but still get beat up by Sasuke and Taijutsu. But they weren't using their abilities. So they're weightlessly speed tier, but they don't have... But they just kind of have certain abilities. If we're assuming they can't go to higher transformations and this is just their base, because he included all their forms, who on this tier can get through Earth Dome? He probably jumps up to there, right? Getting through Earth Dome is a lot harder than people give Jirobo credit for. Like, honestly, man, if Choji is the physically strongest and his human boulder was able to get through the Earth Dome, they needed that to get through the Earth Dome. You know, I'd be able to argue Earth Dome, like, jumps all the way up here. But still, that's a technique, and arguing Jirobo gets it off is a little weird. He mostly caught them off guard to get it off, right? Earth Dome is, like, here, but I think Jirobo, in, like, most fair fights, is probably, like, here. And then this Naruto scales higher because of the Rasengan. It's really weird. Tayuya has a direct statement. It's a direct statement that Jirobo is the weakest of the Sound 4. If you just keep it consistent and say that applies to all forms, Tayuya has to be at least as high. Tayuya should be much faster, by the way, because there's... We'll get into it. Kidomaru was able to stall the entire group. This included Retrieval Arc, Neji, Naruto, Shikamaru, Kiba. And Neji had to, like, go harder to actually take this Kidomaru down. But he still lost to this... Well, he wasn't using his webs. Yeah. So, like, this Kidomaru is probably up here. Where's the rest of them? Oh, Sakon and Ukon. Sakon and Ukon are just directly stated to be the strongest of the Sound 4. Not directly. I take that back. Sakon believes he's the strongest. But there's a very good argument for this to be the case. Sakon doesn't underestimate his opponents. When he fights Kiba, he says, we're not going to mess around, we're going to go full power and end this now for Orochimaru. Which shows that his character isn't to be arrogant and boastful, but he takes his opponent seriously, and he still thinks he's stronger than Kidomaru. Just going off that, we're going to put him up there. And his ability is kind of arguably the strongest. Like, he gets caught in spiderweb, he shoots Ukon out, Ukon frees him, right? Sakon gets caught in Genjutsu, Ukon wakes him up. You know, Sakon... they should just outscale Jirobo's Earth Dome, but that's kind of contentious. But, again, stated above Jirobo, so that's not too bad. Sakon and Ukon in State 1, however, pretty confidently thrashes this Sasuke. And we actually saw again that Sakon, when he fought Naruto, caught his arm and stopped him from using the Rasengan. So the Rasengan isn't like a dub on Sakon and Ukon. You know what? Maybe... We don't see body split outside of... No, we see it in base. So he was just holding back on Sasuke. We don't see Tayuya do any of her Genjutsu in base though, so she just scales above Jirobo. And even if you argue Jirobo Earth Domes her, she should still be able to use Genjutsu. And he'd be within hearing range because he was able to hear what they were saying. So, that's still a dub. From there, Green Pill Choji beat Jirobo, but still probably loses to Genjutsu. Jirobo beats this Choji. But Yellow Pill Choji kind of jumps up. And it should look like that. Wait, what am I doing? Yeah. Okay. So, Jirobo beats up Choji, forces him to use the green pill, and then Curse Mark State 1 Jirobo beats up that green pill Choji and forces him to go into the yellow pill. The yellow pill is just too big and too strong for anyone to beat. It was somewhat able to force Jirobo to use C2, and then obviously when he goes red pill, he one-shots Jirobo. Now, Part 1 Choji has some really weird scaling because of how big he is, but it might be a little overblown. A lot of the arguments that make Part 1 Choji very, very strong rely on the assumption that he's able to fight with the amount of power that he would take to expand to that size. But that's just not the case, right? We know that not all big people, like giant people, fight at that strength level. Kind of a good example is Piccolo, Dragon Ball, right? He gets big, but he doesn't actually get too much stronger. It's just kind of for like aesthetics. That's kind of an example. Choji does get stronger when he takes the yellow pill, but the giant expansion itself might not be that level. But if you think he really is mountain size and he's mountain level, then yeah, he jumps up here. In Part 1, if you think he's mountain level, he kind of low key kind of goes hard. I don't think he's mountain level, just because most of those the calc is Choji is really big and strong. I think you can literally Google it. The problem is that it's using his energy that it would take to expand as his energy he's using to fight, and it's not the same. He also can't maintain it for very long, so even if he is like this high, he's like this high for like 10 seconds, and then he gets worn out. So. Plus, he's stated to be the weakest Jirobo, and the fact that he needed the red pill to beat Jirobo tells me that yellow pill Choji is not taking on to Yuya. He's not taking on like Retrieval Art Gaara and Lee, right? It's kind of hard to accept, but he's just not. It's just not that consistent for him to like jump all the way up here. So, but yeah, red pill Choji. If he punches someone in this tier, they die. The argument is who can he punch, which we'll get to. C1 Kidomaru. Probably like this. This is probably how Neji and Kidomaru go, though, compared to Choji. You can argue that yellow and green pill Choji can use the pills to activate their chakra again after Neji gets them, but red pill Choji doesn't have that luxury. And then Neji fights Kidomaru and can react to the lightning arrow. There's a reason. Okay, so basically the Sound Force speed argument is that Jirobo is considered in combat to be the weakest member. Jirobo is able to watch Choji expand to the size of a mountain at lightning speed incrementally. In the anime, it's like shown in segments, like slow motion. So Jirobo should be a lightning timer. This is one of those cases where it kind of helps. We know that Kidomaru can fire bows at lightning. To Yuya has to be somewhat comparable in speed to work as a team. And then the same as Sakon and Ukon being the strongest. If you argue that rationally they have to be at the same level of speed to fight as a team, that means everyone scales to Jirobo's lightning speed timing, which would help get everyone else up here. It also helps argue, like, okay, so Neji can fight Kidomaru, Choji can fight Jirobo, So they're probably relative enough in speed that Neji can palms this Choji, right? Because Choji explicitly talks about getting stronger, not faster, when he fights. So, Tayuya fights like Shikamaru and loses, like blatantly. But Kidomaru and Sakon Nukon should still probably be stronger than her. But going off the argument again that Tayuya has to be higher, I don't think that she can do anything to Choji. Just being real. It just might be a case where she just genjutsus Choji, but it's kind of hard to say. She might be able to genjutsu Neji. I still think Neji just has better speed arguments than Tayuya, because Tayuya is rationally tied like up here, and then Jirobo can react to lightning speed things, but then Neji reacts and moves to a lightning attack instead of just perceiving it. I think this order should be fine. Tamari comes in and beats her. There's a direct statement that Tayuya's chakra had grown right before Tamari shows up, so she's not like super fatigued or anything like that. It's weird. But yeah, Tamari like whoops her badly. Kiba. Now Kiba is really hard. Kiba should probably go right there, which is kind of weird to say. The reason that I think this is because Sakon and Ukon are stated to be, the strongest, right? And I used that earlier to kind of push it. The reason I'm putting Kiba there, though, Kiba pretty blatantly lost to Sakon and Ukon, so he doesn't scale to them. But it is stated that Rashomon is the greatest line of defense for Lord Orochimaru, and Kiba are able to dent that, Kiba and Akamaru. So that means that Kiba and Akamaru can dent something that's a greater defense for Orochimaru than Jirobo is physically, right? Because Jirobo just has power. So that means that Kiba and Akamaru are like tearing up Jirobo physically, Tayuya's puppets, and like Kidomaru's spider. But they all have abilities that might be Kiba. For instance, Tayuya does have genjutsu, but we do know that Kiba said that they can't hear or see anything when they move at that speed, so maybe Kiba beats Tayuya, but I think Tayuya beats Choji, and Choji beats Kiba. So that's kind of a combat triangle. I don't think Kiba can do anything if he gets caught in the web with Kidomaru. Neji might be able to rotation it, or just move out of the way. We also know that Kiba and Akamaru's rotation isn't that fast. Sakon and Ukon were able to react to it and jump out of the way. They got caught off guard till I get hit by it because of the puddle or whatever that messed up their movement. So even at that, Kiba and Akamaru might not be scaling fully in speed to them. It's kind of hard to say. But I'm just using the Rashomon statement to put Kiba above Jirobo. And then this Choji is just kind of too strong for everyone in this tier. That's how I would put it, more or less. But it is worth noting that Jirobo to Kidomaru is kind of a big gap with a lot of characters. It's just because this tier is like really super relative. And it's more who would wins than like power scaling chains, right? Kankuro comes in and beats Sakon and Ukon. You can argue Sakon and Ukon are injured and fatigued, and I won't have a problem with that. However, the style that Kankuro used to fight them would have been effective even if they weren't. So I don't really care. If you care about it that much that they were fatigued, all you have to do is say that. But the puppet still helps. The problem is if you say that that's fatigued, this Kankuro does have a harder time scaling up here. I'm just gonna say he's not, just to make it easy. I know that's like the lamest cop out. This is going on like an hour and 15 minutes, and I've actually been having to think the entire time. I'm stupid, okay? Leave me alone. I think if Sakyan and Ukon are fatigued and that's the only reason he achieved this feat, then he goes more like down below Choji or Kiba, but probably still beats Jirobo. No, honestly, if Sakon and Ukon are fatigued and that's the only reason Kankuro won, he probably goes like down here. Somewhere. Probably like here. Maybe. But I also just kind of think the entire point is for Kankuro to Yuya and Gaara to show up and like fight, at the same level. Not Gaara, but help against the Sound 4. Sound 4 are relative. And Kankuro and Tamari pretty easily clean up their opponent, so I don't think it's too far off to say it like this. And like I said, you can argue that even if Sakon and Ukon are fatigued, his fighting style still would have let him beat them the exact same. Kimimaro. Okay, so now we need to go back for a second. Zabuza was below Kakashi. By how much, though, is kind of the problem. Kakashi beat him pretty badly when he wasn't caught off guard and didn't have people to protect. And he beat him the second time. So he confidently scales above him. Proving number jumps through here is really hard. It's actually hard to even prove with the C2 that you get stronger in speed and power because of what we're about to talk about with Kimimaro, which is why I think we're going to leave Kakashi above Kimimaro and scaling to this Naruto, and we'll get into it, but essentially Kimimaro should jump here for one reason. Yuya fights Shikamaru, who undergoes no physical transformations and has no changes of resolve or will. So he doesn't get the will of fire, he doesn't undergo any transformations. Shikamaru is able to fight and react to Yuya in all three of her forms. Or at the very least C1 and C2. And he was able to chase her, and she was able to not immediately get blitzed by base Shikamaru, right? So they scale in speed all together. When Kimimaro shows up, he blitzes to Yuya, Naruto, and Shikamaru badly. He's able to kick away the coffin and land with it before they can realize what's happening. This means that base Kimimaro can blitz C2 to Yuya, who has to be able to keep up in speed with the other C2 Sound 4 members. Which means that base Kimimaro should, kind of be, a level above Kankuro and everyone below him. So, the idea that he's, pretty confidently now speed, strength, ninjutsu, everything above these guys is probably where Kakashi and Naruto are going to pop in. And we're going to put Kimimaro here. This is why they're, a stopgap, because from Kankuro down to Hinata, it's kind of hard to get these characters being much, much faster than each other, right? So, but Kimimaro is a pretty blatant, jump, right? All these guys at their best are just outdone by base Kimimaro. That's why I have him so high. We have the direct statement of Sasuke on the way with Kimimaro. While Kimimaro is sick, I wonder who is stronger. Sasuke gets stronger as he fights. Kimimaro gets sicker and dies more as he fights. So I'm going to place them in this order. Going off this logically, C1 Kimimaro is stronger than Sasuke, but 3 Tomo Sharingan Sasuke should then jump, be higher again, not last him. We know that the 3 Tomo was seen as a jump great enough that he didn't need the first state of his curse mark, so it should be logical it jumps above the curse mark. And then from there, right, this one beats this Sasuke, this one beats this Naruto. Jumping back in, this Naruto is fighting the Sasuke and is now losing, which means that he more than likely wouldn't be able to overcome this Kimimaro. This isn't too outlandish. We know Kimimaro in base was able to take on another version of Kyuubi Naruto pretty confidently. This is explicitly stated to be the strongest version of Kyuubi Naruto that we see in Part 1 besides One Tail. But at the same time, that would just push him above base Kimimaro and base Sasuke, not C1 Kimimaro, 3-Tomo Sasuke. From there, C2 Kimimaro just like loses and dies. Naruto literally gets one attack off, but you can actually argue Kimimaro would be the top because you would just have better stamina than these two in these forms. So like these two have better stamina than these two forms, but this one has better stamina than these two forms. It's kind of weird. But if you want to be consistent with these placements, you could put it like this. I don't have a problem either way. Either way, we know these two are comparable more to each other and that Naruto is always a step behind. So you can do it like this. There's no problem no matter how you want to do it. But personally, I think that his stamina is better. Basically, he fights for like a little bit. These two have like one attack. So that's what I'm going off of. Gaara shows up and pretty confidently beats C1 Kimimaro. However, this Sasuke still has the Chidori, so he would still more than likely beat this Gaara. Time for the fun part, man. Honestly, yeah. That's where I'm putting Drunk Lee. So, I need to get these all organized so that I can make a very clear and concise point. Alright. Music off. Complete focus. Drunken Lee fights Kimimaro and forces Kimimaro to draw out the power of the curse mark to defeat him. This is while Lee is drunk and Kimimaro scales here. However, there's a direct statement that Lee is weaker, not weaker, slower than he was the last time that Gaara fought him. Well, which Lee is he talking about? Is Gaara talking about base Lee that showed up and saved Naruto? Is he talking about Drunken Lee that forced Kimimaro to draw out the power of the curse mark? Is he talking about fatigued primary Lotus Lee that tried to fight Curse Mark 1 Kimimaro after the medicine wore off? We don't know. So if you're scaling Retrieval Arc Lee that isn't drunk, all we know is that he's weaker than a past version of Lee. Gaara also fought 3 Lees before. Base Lee, who couldn't do anything. Weightless Lee, who could blitz him but not seriously hurt him. And 4th Gate Lee. So, for this Lee to get amped here, again, it's kind of hard to prove it's that much of a jump in speed, but Kimimaro is the bigger jump. So that means the drunk amp is a significant amp, but proving it's like even lower down here, it's a really big amp. So this Lee probably scales to 4th Gate Lee because he's slower, which means this Lee would probably just hit him, right? Well, how could this be? He was in the hospital. Well, Lee trains in the hospital. So, there we go. Let's see. What timestamps did I leave for myself? 144.
Not too shabby. Okay, though. You know how we flighted his sisters! He's faster than before.
He's faster than before. He directly got faster after consuming the liquor. Okay, 705. What's at 705?
Goodness I had Neji with me. It took the 2 of us combined. But Lee's special to me. I could never hurt a hair on his head.
So that's the limiter. That's why this tier is definitely weaker than the guy tier, right? Lee says I could beat him, but I can't hurt him, right? Because guy is just like the nicest dude ever, right?
That's quite the taijutsu. No other choice.
No other choice. Yeah. Drunken Lee is above base Kimimaro, base Final Valley of the end Sasuke. So yeah. So yeah. Alright, now for these weird characters. These characters don't have any scaling. Scales to Orochimaru vaguely, but not really. Arguably weaker than this Gaara, but that's kind of hard. Fugaku actually has really good scaling in lore, but not in part 1. Itachi being weaker than this Fugaku is also kind of interesting, but that's more part 2. Rasa has some pretty good scaling to the Raikage and speed, and it's stated that Kimimaro is like an instrumental part and able to kind of help take down Rasa. We also know full healthy Kimimaro has way better scaling than this list for like fighting a KCM Naruto clone. So this list is way... These ones are really weird. Alright. That's why they're not on the list. But that should be it. I don't really care about the like Legends tier, and like getting in below kind of don't matter. I'm more interested in this chunk of the list, right? So if you like want to change something, if you think I did something completely wrong, let me know. But actually, yeah, that's right. That's right, it's good I caught that. All the C1s have to be above Sasuke because Curse Mark 1 is stronger when it's amped by the pill. But other than that, let me know what you would change. Let me know what you have a problem with. But like, I refuse to beef. Alright? I don't care if you prove everything wrong I said with Drunken Lee. If you're not like rude about it, I'll literally will just be like, yep, you're right. Alright? I don't want that weird shit. Alright? I just want to make tier lists. Thank you, Spikage, for the tier list. Man, I ain't dick riding or nothing. It's a really bad Riley impression. But yeah, making lists like that, it's a pain in the ass to make one that's this organized, has this many characters. A massive respect for this tier list for existing. And I mean, this is like everyone that matters. I don't really care that you left out like the mist getting, you know. I don't care. But yeah, that'll be the list. Nah, I'm not plugging my stuff on this one. I don't want people that won't think of me as a power scaler to go follow me when I like play games. Bye. Hope you had fun. Leave a comment telling me what I did wrong. And I'm not asking for the algorithm. I'm asking because I want to like... I love hearing people talk about Naruto, alright? It's why I watch people that like are kind of more sus in the community, if you get what I'm saying. And, you know, people that are more normie than I can kind of stand sometimes. Because I like hearing all kinds of takes. This is like someone that can only think at the level of a normie, intelligence-wise, but like knows a lot of edgy scaling. I'd say is like what mine is. But yeah, bye.